Navigating the aftermath of the pandemic has been one of the biggest challenges of our time, and to keep operations moving, companies have also moved to a hybrid or digital model, adopting new ways of working as individuals and teams. In some cases, companies have also done away with working in person altogether. As a result, many companies have also shifted the process of job applications, recruitment, interviewing, and hiring, moving to more digital methods. This week, we're here to support you navigating the future of work by gathering tools, resources, and the skills needed to thrive in your career. Whether your career will be fully remote or 100% in person, we know you'll gain so much new insights and skills to help you navigate the future of work. We couldn't have done all of this without our sponsors. So a big thank you to our title sponsor, Mackenzie Investments, our executive sponsor, Mars Canada, our session sponsors, LHH, Adecco, Indeed, and Phillips, and to all of our add-on sponsors, ICF Toronto and Isomers. I'm so excited to kick off today's session, so please allow me to introduce to you Iona Frost, Dress for Success Toronto's Director of Client Programs. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, Kate, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Fantastic session yesterday focused on the future of work and all that that means. So if you missed it, not to worry, you'll still have an opportunity to access that link to the recording next week. If you haven't registered for any other sessions in the coming days, also not to worry, there's still time. So we'll be talking about things like salary negotiations, interview performance strategies, and tips to support your first 100 days in a new role. Again, we thank all our amazing sponsoring partners for making this event possible, and you'll learn more about each of them over the course of the conference. So be sure to stick around to the end of today's session, as we'll be sharing a link so that you can register, or you can also just head back to our website at any time to sign up. So before we launch in today's sessions, I'm just going to go over a few quick housekeeping details. If you experience any tech issues, please just click on the button to the right. It looks like a little ship's captain wheel. And here you'll access a list of frequently asked questions, and it'll offer some troubleshooting tips. If that doesn't seem to be working and you can't find the support you need there, just drop a message in the chat where Kim is at the ready to help you. If you require closed captioning, if you click on the icon above the help button, and this one looks like a cloud with an arrow pointing down, here you can download instructions to set that up. And also, as I already mentioned, these sessions are being recorded and they will be posted to our YouTube channel next week. And we'll make sure that everybody gets a link to that so you don't have to furiously take notes or wonder what it is that you can do to remember all the great information that you're going to receive today. So although we're not in person, we do want to make sure that today is as interactive as possible. So please don't be shy about asking questions or sharing your reactions. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. So on this platform, it looks like a bunch of you have already found it, which is great. There's a little area with a little speech bubble with 3 dots, and that's where you can plug in any of your comments or if you have any questions. And we will be doing a formal Q&A at the end, so we'll be picking some of these questions and making sure that we address those. And then at any time, please use the reactions as you go. Right here, we've got all sorts of fun emojis with hearts, parties, claps. Tell us how you're feeling as we go along for the session. So before we head into the main event, a quick reminder about some opportunities to win some very cool prizes. So at each of the 5 sessions throughout the week, we'll be giving away a $100 Visa gift card, and these will be drawn at random, and the winners will be contacted directly. Plus, we're also giving away 5 brand new Acer Chromebook laptops. So we've got a quiz that's prepared, and it'll be live over the 5 days of the conference with questions that are related to each day's sessions. So yes, the key here is to join us every day for your chance to win. And the laptops will be awarded to the top 5 ranking individuals with the most points, and winners will be announced the week after the event. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome and introduce today's guests from Adecco, who will be focusing on helping you build your brand. Adecco is one of the leading and most comprehensive staffing and workforce solution companies in the country, specializing in search and placement services for temporary and permanent personnel, as well as contractor management and recruitment consulting. Adecco operates across several industries and leverages specialized divisions to offer recruitment solutions in areas of engineering, IT, skilled trades, management, and general staffing. So much incredible insight and knowledge. Since 2019, the Adecco Group Foundation has been a valued partner with 15 Dress for Success affiliate locations across Canada, providing local event support and group volunteer engagement to help our clients with career planning, professional education, and skill building. So I'm so pleased, and please join me in welcoming Vanessa Duarte and Melissa Tabakian. Vanessa is the head of training and develops service offerings with the objective of upskilling and reskilling workers in support of Adecco's strategy of enabling sustainable and lifelong employability. Her focus is also on working towards improving support and removing barriers for underrepresented groups to enhance diversity and inclusion. And Melissa is Adecco's digital marketing and event specialist. She has a passion for optimizing personal and business brands on social media platforms that include TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you so much to you both for joining us today, and I turn it over to you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the amazing welcome. Can everybody hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome. Amazing. So I just wanted to start by thanking everybody. I can see the ticker at the top that we're at like 112 people. So first off, I want to thank all of you for voting with your time and choosing to spend your time with us. We prepared something really interesting for you today. And the one ask that we have of you is to please interact with us. This is a workshop with content for you. We have created polls, we have questions, we have insight, but at the end of the day, what we are hoping to do is give you some great tactics and help you build a toolkit to support you, whether you are changing careers, whether you are entering your career. But we really hope that it is interactive, and we really hope that you collaborate with us, and we're really looking forward to spending our time with you. So what are we talking about today? Can everybody see the screen? Melissa, are we good to go?
I think so, as long as everyone can see it.
Oh, I love all these emojis. Okay, so are you on LinkedIn? So what are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be digging into LinkedIn, what it is, how we use it, why we use it, and how do we want to create an image and a brand going to support what it is that we are looking for. So as Iona's so beautifully introduced us, Melissa and I work with Adecco, and our role is really to make the future work for everyone. We have the opportunity to interact with incredible people like yourselves, with clients, so that we can develop programs and initiatives because we know what the power of work represents in an individual's life. So before we get started, we want to start with a quick poll, and we want to get an idea of, are you on LinkedIn? So there is an area in the bottom where you can click either yes or no, and let's get a sense of, are you on LinkedIn? So 91, we've got 91% with yes and about 8% with no. So that's fantastic. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today? Let's move over to slide 3 if we can. Our workshop agenda is, what is LinkedIn? How are we supposed to be using it? How do we want to be using it? And why? Why do we want to use LinkedIn? I bet if I did another quick roundtable and started asking you, how many of you are on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook? We use social media for a variety of platforms, but what we really want to focus on is, what is it about LinkedIn that has made it such a powerful resource and such a powerful source for both networking, research, and building your brand? So if we move to slide 4, we're going to start getting into the meat of our presentation here. Okay, so what is LinkedIn? So if I were to ask anybody on this call, everybody signed up for it, everybody created a profile, but do we actually know what LinkedIn is? So a couple things I want to run through to see if this might surprise you. LinkedIn was founded in 2003 in the US. It was a platform that was started in the US. When it first started, it was designed simply as a professional networking site for people to actually host their resumes. And that was what the original intention was. That they wanted individuals who wanted to seek out jobs. They wanted people to be able to share recommendations. They wanted to have their mentors be able to comment on their work. And in the last 10 years, it has evolved into a contact relationship management service for individuals. So the use of LinkedIn in terms of how it has evolved has been absolutely staggering. So today, if we were to look at the overall membership of LinkedIn, it has over 740 million global users on this site. And I love to get a reaction if that surprises you. If I told you there were 740 million people on LinkedIn, does that surprise you? It's interesting, right? So we can really see the power that this platform, which is free to join, which is relatively easy to manage, the opportunity and the reach that we have if we're able to cultivate and we're able to create how we want to appear on LinkedIn. So really, really interesting. I've always found that stat incredible. So why LinkedIn? Why do we want to focus on LinkedIn? Why is it important? In Canada, we have 18 million users who were on LinkedIn, according to their LinkedIn data. If we look at why LinkedIn is impactful, globally, 122 million people received an interview through LinkedIn. We know that based on this initial sourcing data, 35 million people have been hired through LinkedIn, and 3 people are hired through LinkedIn every second. So I'm giving you this information because I want you to see the context in terms of the scope that people have access to your profile and why the visibility of how we are creating our profile is so impactful. So I'm going to keep going while Mel's turning off her second monitor.
Great.
So why is LinkedIn so popular, you guys? Why is it popular? If I were to ask you, do you go on to LinkedIn once a week? Let's see a thumbs up if anybody goes in once a week. Do you go in every day? How many of you pop into your LinkedIn profile every day? So I want you to remember the efficiency and the time with which you are going in, because what is important to recognize is the same efficiency for you to go in and have a look at what's happening in your timeline. Are there any interesting posts? Is there something coming up in your newsfeed? Have you had any messages reaching out to you? Let's think about the popularity of that exposure, efficiency, and how you are able to go in at any time of the day and edit, add, change, completely reconfigure what you're looking at. So it's really important that we kind of keep this in mind in terms of how this is playing into why LinkedIn is so impactful. And as we start getting into how we can start building your profile, here's what I want to do to launch into this. As Kate said in the beginning of her intro, what we have learned since COVID is we have seen the great resignation, the great reshuffle, the great reset. We've seen all of these different terms that have labeled what is basically one very simple statement. People have recognized that how we work, where we work, and the kind of work that we do can be completely reconfigured based on what we want out of our career. And the way that work is being done and how it's being done and the skills that we're able to upskill and how we want to change our career is a huge topic of conversation right now. And there has never been, across every demographic, from Gen Z to the boomer population, a better time to look at reevaluating your career. Gen Zs are coming into the career faster at fast rates that we could never even anticipate. The type of work that we're seeing across the board is incredible. The availability of roles that might have seemed inaccessible in the past, the opportunities that clients are looking at to build workforces that work for women, that work for people who need certain accommodations. We're seeing such a big difference in terms of why the workforce is changing. And so what we want to support you with is, how can we tailor our profile? How can we use the different availability that LinkedIn builds with us to create a brand that really reflects who you are and what you're doing? So before we jump into the how, we've got another quick poll we want to start with, which is, are you ready for it? Do you feel that your LinkedIn profile is a strong representation of who you are? And I'm going to add to that, today. So if you all think about your LinkedIn profile, and I went in and read one of your profiles and I said, yeah, this is exactly how this person is, would you agree or would you disagree with me? So now we're seeing a difference. So now we've got 70% saying no, 28% saying yes. So before we get into the how, I'd like to open it up and ask if somebody would like to volunteer why they think it's not a representation of who they are. Not current, I don't engage, not updated. Carolina, that's a great comment. I don't engage, participate, or post anything. Still working on keywords, no photo. Barbara, I struggle with what to post because of my age. We're going to talk about that. I did mine really quick without putting info into it. Okay. Doesn't project my personality, only results. These are really, really great comments, you guys. Thank you. Okay. Excellent. Good. Carol, I loved your comment. Recommended only to post last 10 years experience. So we are going to get into this because you have brought up some incredible, incredible points that I want to make sure that we're touching on. So when we talk about, if we can move over to slide 6. So how we want to build our profile. So on the left, we have a very traditional resume. I think everybody who is attending this session would agree. Traditionally, when you were to look for a job without LinkedIn, on the left, we look at Paul's resume, and this is historically what you would bring and what you would deliver to a client. If we look on the right, we see a LinkedIn profile. And we see things positioned a little bit differently. Paul has a little bit more control in terms of how he is creating his profile. And we want to dig into this a little bit. For the comments, Carol, I'm going to showcase your comments as well. Recommend only to post, or it's a repetition of my resume. Lynn, great comment. Here's what I want you guys to start by thinking about. When you pick up a book, for those of you who are readers in this workshop, if I pick up a book, the first thing I typically do is I turn the book over and I look at the summary in the back. Or I look at the reviews inside the first page, or I Google to see what other people think about this book. So when we think about the snapshot in a book jacket, it's going to tell me, this is what this book is about. This is a brief outline of the plot. And it's just enough to get me interested to either pick up the book and walk away with it, or put it down and look for something else. But what it doesn't do is outline the process that the author took on what type of computer they used, how many hours or years it took them to write the book. So I want you to think about this, because what we often see on LinkedIn profiles is we put the whole kitchen sink onto our profile. So Carol, this comment is for you. We put the whole kitchen sink into the profile. I want you to think about this. Are you trying to look qualified for the job you did? Or are you trying to look qualified for the job that you want? So this is the first question I want to kind of burrow into your minds, okay? If I pick up a book that I'm about to read, what I don't learn about is what room in their house the author sat in when she wrote the book, how many hours it took her, how many drafts it took, that she went to school and got this degree in journalism to write this book. What I see is the outcome of her project, which is her novel, as an example. So when we think about our LinkedIn profile, this is your finished product. This is your book. So when you go back into your profile, I want you to look at it and I want you to think, am I putting in all this information that showcases how qualified I am to do the job that I did going back 10 years? Or am I showcasing the work and the accomplishments and the achievements that are going to make me incredibly resourceful to support your team in this next opportunity? And thank you, Melissa. It's very kind. I'm going to give you another example because most of us are quite visual when we are trying to make connections. For those of us who like to eat in a restaurant, when I go to the restaurant and I open up the menu and I look at lasagna as an example, and I order lasagna, my expectation is lasagna is going to be delivered to my table. What I don't see is we got our eggs from this farm, the milk came from this grocery store, Joey in the kitchen is going to make the sauce. Here's all the things that are going to happen to bring you your food. When I order the lasagna comes to my table. It might list some really interesting flavors that I might experience in it, but it doesn't go through every step taken to create that meal. So that's another visual so to keep in mind. And the reason why we're saying this is because there is a difference when you are constructing your resume and your LinkedIn profile to focus on skills and duties versus the outcome and the achievement. I may be a really great at Excel as an example, but what am I doing with Excel? What am I going to do for you in your organization? I may be a great public speaker, but how is that going to translate into your organization? So my first burrow into your mind is to think about, does your profile show you as everything that you're qualified to do before or everything you want to do? The second point I want you to start to think about is, am I listing all the duties that I'm able to do, or am I showing you how great my lasagna is going to taste? Okay, so I want you to think about that. Ingredients are important, but what you do with those ingredients is what decides how many people come to that restaurant. Everybody with me? Everybody understand these analogies? Are we good? Okay. All right. So let's move forward and let's get into the lasagna of our presentation here. So we reached out to Iona, and she was very kind enough to provide us with some of your LinkedIn profiles. And who's hungry? I'm always hungry. A few of your profiles where we felt you did a phenomenal job in highlighting some of these key pieces. So for those of your individuals that are in this workshop, we want to definitely give them a big cheer because it was fantastic for them to share it and we want to showcase it. So we've got 10 tips that we want you to think about when you are constructing your profile. And we're ready to get into this. Everybody ready? We had some hiccups getting in, but now we're in it. We're ready. And after that, we're all going to go out for lasagna. Okay. So number one, you want to write an incredible headline so that you are attracting people to your profile. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by a headline? Is a headline, look at me, I'm looking for a job? Is a headline, I'm willing to work in Toronto? What a great trailer before the movie. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Yes. So when we think about a headline, big shout out to Naomi. Naomi had a fantastic headline. Her headline reads, Communications Powerhouse, Content Manager Writer, Digital Storyteller with Photography and Writing Skills. So when I read Naomi's headline, I've just read the back of the book and I know when I start flipping through pages, I'm not going to learn how to build a deck. I know that Naomi is a communications powerhouse. I know that she's a content manager. I know that she's a digital storyteller with photography and writing skills. So Naomi, if you're on, amazing. Big hands up, thumbs up for Naomi, round of applause. So what this does, it explains her professional role, right? We understand what Naomi is focusing on, explains her experience, shows me a glimpse into her personality, and it tells me that she's passionate about her work and she thinks about her work in a passionate way. So even if you're not looking for a job, you want to make sure that your headline is a great place to showcase a little bit of your personality. And it doesn't matter the role that you're doing. If you're working in food and hospitality, if you are volunteering in a role where you've got a very small role to play, what you bring to that role and who you are when you perform in that environment is everything about who you are. So you want to be able to showcase a little bit about your headline. So when you think about positions, and Naomi, I'm going to come back to you because Naomi is in a very creative position. We want to think about the fact that if I just put in creative events, digital storyteller, I'm also recognizing the fact that if I start putting in these words in a search field and I'm looking for a content writer, is Naomi going to come up in my search? Yes, she is, 100%. So what Naomi has done is Naomi has made sure that she's taking advantage of keywords. She's showcasing her ability. She's talking about who she is as an individual. She is giving us a glimpse into the different skills that she is able to perform. But then we also know that I can talk to her about bakery, tourism, food industry, entrepreneurship. So I know that Naomi, number one, is incredibly self-aware, has a variety of interests, probably a lifelong learner, really interesting. And this is somebody that already has captured my attention. So we go back to our book image. We go back to our menu in our restaurant. I really like the way they wrote about this lasagna. I really like the first 3 lines about what this book is going to be about, which means I'm going to keep reading. And what we know about our beautiful and incredible brains is that we've got about 3 seconds to make an impression. And if I don't grab you in those first 3 seconds with either compelling language, a strong statement, or information that is relevant to what I am looking for, because inherently humans, we're always trying to satisfy what we need first, then you're going to lose me. And so Naomi, you captured that front and center. We also have Melissa's headline, because Melissa as well, digital and event specialist, always looking to add a little extra pizzazz in every aspect of work. So again, you know, this is somebody who has fun in their job, who is not going to come in and put their heads down and just work. So I just want you to think about, when you're creating your headline, 2 very important things. I guarantee if I ask Naomi, did you just sit down in front of your computer and tap, 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 and out came this headline? No. I bet you that she wrote this and rewrote it and thought about it and asked people and went back and forth. So I want you also to think about everything we're talking about today. I want to make sure you don't go back to your office or your computer. And I don't want you to feel that if this does not come out immediately, that you have nothing to say. Every single person attending this workshop has an incredible story to tell, has a fascinating background. We just want to look at how can we create this with words, right? Naomi doesn't have sentences. These are just words. And we are here to support you with that. And after this call, you will have all my contact information. And if you want help creating any of these points, happy to support you with this. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mel, who's going to talk to us about summary.
Thanks, Vanessa. So your summary is really the best place for you to communicate your personal brand. So you might want to think of your summary as like an about me section. So Vanessa's used like that, the back of the jacket for a book. Like this is kind of like your brief meat and potatoes. So whether you're using LinkedIn to find a job or market your business or build your professional brand, the summary section is really important real estate. So ideally, you're looking at around 1 to 2 sentences that will cover who you are, about 3 to 5 sentences about your experience, top skills, and passions, and then 1 to 2 sentences about your future goals. So LinkedIn will not allow an about section to be over 2,000 characters, but I actually don't recommend getting even close to that number at all. And I also wouldn't recommend it being too short. If your about section is too short, it may feel like a little dull or uninspired or perhaps incomplete. But that being said, you don't want it to be so full that someone comes across your page and feels like they have like information overload. So ideally, you want to explain who you are, what makes you a qualified worker, and then what you're looking for in a really nice, concise bit of space. So one of the profiles that we pulled that I thought was great was Christine Acries. And I thought her summary, the structure again. Oh, sure. Yeah. So 1 to 2 sentences about who you are, 3 to 5 sentences about your experience, top skills, and passions, and then 1 to 2 sentences about your future goals. So with Christine Acries' summary, she says that she is an experienced senior executive assistant. And she says, talent management specialist with a demonstrated history of working in the entertainment and financial industries. I can help you bring your company to the next level by taking all of your administrative tasks from you, organizing and prioritizing everything, thereby freeing you to do the job you were hired to do, confident that the details are all being handled by your experienced senior executive assistant. So she did cover what she has done in the past, what her title is. And then she says like what can be done once she's on your team. So that's like, kind of laying out the future of all the things that you can do when she is your senior executive assistant. If she wanted, she could use like slightly more detail when describing her past experience and linking that description with what she is hoping to do in the future. So that would just be my tip of like how she can even like make it even better. But she does a really good job, I think, of kind of covering the bases. But I personally appreciate being able to tie it all together. What you've done, what you enjoy doing, what you aim to do.
Something else for the summary, guys, that I want you to think about, and you'll learn there's 2 things that I reference every time, and it mostly comes out of the kitchen or books. So all of you, I want you to picture that you've got a kitchen cupboard in front of you. And in that kitchen cupboard are the people that you can pull out and say, hey, what do you think I was really good at in this next role? What problem do you always see that I'm solving for you? Because sometimes when we can reach into that cupboard and get other people to help us with what would our summary be? What am I good at? What problems do I solve? Because I always believe if you're looking at a bottle, it's hard to read the label from the inside, right? Sometimes we need somebody outside to look at us, read our label, and then reflect to us, this is what you're really good at. You always show up like this. These are problems you always seem to solve. Here's why I always count on you. So just remember, when you're trying to come up with your summary and who you are and what you think makes you tick, sometimes it's hard for us to kind of read the label when we're inside the bottle. And sometimes we need to reach into our kitchen cupboard and have somebody kind of read the label to us, give us some prompts, give us some observations, and go from there. And that brings us into the recommendations. Now, this is a section that usually causes people a tremendous amount of stress. We're going to break it all down for you. first of all, I need to give huge props to Jasmine. Jasmine, if you are on this call, loved your recommendations, loved what people had to say. But let's talk about recommendations. Let's talk about what we're looking for in a recommendation. Jasmine, there you are. Okay. How many of you, before you go to a restaurant, book a service, buy a toaster, how many of you read the reviews? Yeah, we all do. Whether we want to or not, we all read the reviews. And how many of you will make a decision on a product solely based on the reviews, especially when it comes to our hair? This is a big one for me, right? So oftentimes we really rely on crowdsourcing to help prop up our decision, or sometimes we rely on other people's observations of a product or a service or a restaurant or a trip to help us look at something in a way that maybe we hadn't observed it in the past. When it comes to recommendations, recommendations are different from a reference. A reference is typically, I am verifying key elements of your work to make sure that it aligns to the job I need done in my company. A recommendation is, Melissa, when we worked together on this project, I love the way you always came up with these ideas. Naomi, your storytelling and your ability to run this project was great. Jasmine, I really like the way you're able to bring these solutions or your initiative or whatever the case is. To get a great recommendation, here's what I want you guys to think about. If I were to call up somebody that I haven't talked to in 5 years and said, do you remember when we went out for dinner? Always food with me, guys. You know this. Remember we went out for dinner and we had that amazing lasagna? What was the name of that restaurant? I don't know. I'm not going to remember that. But if I were to call you and say, hey, Jasmine, do you remember that time that we were in this neighborhood and we walked into this restaurant named this and we ordered lasagna? And it was such a great night. And the server kept telling us these great stories. And we really liked the atmosphere. And then we went for ice cream later. Yeah, that was a great night. We should go back to that restaurant, or we should leave a review on that restaurant. The more breadcrumbs I can leave for you to, number one, activate that memory, reinforce that what you did was fantastic. And here was the outcome of what you did. And here's why I really enjoyed calling out this particular scenario with you. If I were to turn around and say, how would you feel about leaving a review on our website based on your experience? The chances of me now, because you brought everything up to the top of my mind, for me to sit down and say, we went to such and such a restaurant in the summer of 2019, had a fantastic lasagna. Our server's name was Joey. Joey was great. He was personable. He anticipated our needs. We'd definitely be back. Versus, what was the name of that place that we went to and what did we eat? Do you remember what we had? So when it comes to recommendations, if you are looking to build recommendations into your profile, you need to jog the memory of the person that you want to be able to give a testimonial to what the impact of your performance was. So if it was a project, if you're in customer service and you had an incredible experience with a customer and your manager noticed it, and you were to go back and say, hey, Iona, do you remember that time we were dealing with this individual and Jasmine was really happy with her service. And in fact, I even think Jasmine sent an email to you and talked about it because the problem I could have solved with this, but I went to the next level and I did this. How would you feel about making a recommendation for me on LinkedIn showcasing that event? Sure, because you've already given me enough that I can build my recommendation off of it rather than sitting in front of my computer trying to figure out what am I going to say about Jasmine. Do you guys see the difference? Does that make sense? Okay, thank you guys all for the thumbs up. So when it comes to recommendations, they can be very powerful when we take the initiative to open up that conversation and remind the individual, do you remember when we worked together, we solved that problem, I was able to do this. The outcome was this. And really trying to build up my profile and showcase my ability to, maybe it's be a digital storyteller. Maybe it's to be an effective organizer. Maybe it's to be a problem solver. And I feel like this experience and your feedback from that experience would really help bolster the profile and the brand I'm trying to connect. Is that something you'd be comfortable doing? And many people will not say no to that. And what's even more helpful is to sometimes follow it up in bullet points in an email. So I know recommendations is often scary. We don't often like to ask people for these types of testimonials. But if we frame it in, do you remember when I did this? Here's what I did. Here was the outcome. It's going to really help me in building my brand to showcase this, which is what I'm searching for. Would you feel comfortable showcasing and summarizing this, as we just discussed, on my LinkedIn profile? Do we feel good about how we profiled this, or do we want to go into this in a few more details? You guys let me know. If we're good to move on, give me a thumbs up.
I just want to add, Vanessa, that a way to also do that is to ask right away for a recommendation. So instead of having to say, remember when we had that lasagna, and gave all those details, which, I mean, of course you can do, it's much better. It's much easier to say, hey, remember that delicious lasagna we had last night? Let's write a review, because it's fresh in your mind. So I wouldn't shy away from asking people for a recommendation as soon as you complete a project, or as soon as you finish working with someone, because that's when their opinion of you is going to be really fresh in their mind. And they might even remember things that you didn't realize that they were taking note of. So I would really just recommend also just being quick with that ask, and that it's really okay to ask for a recommendation, and to do it in a timely manner.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Okay. And now, in terms of experience, I'm going to toss the baton over to you, Mel.
Yeah, definitely. So in the experience section, we just want to make sure that you tailor each of the positions. So if you're looking for a particular job at this point in your career, be sure to highlight responsibilities that will apply to your new job. So I'm going to reference Naomi's LinkedIn page again. We really gravitated to Naomi a lot with our examples, but she did a great job because I love the way that she's done her experience on her page. She's referenced not only the various responsibilities and tasks that she performed, but she also used examples of her work. So we can see the common thread between her jobs, because she's highlighted, for example, her editing and her content creation in many of them. So we can see that it speaks for itself. She is passionate about editing or content creation, because she's done it in all of her jobs. And even if it wasn't necessarily her main responsibility, I'm going to assume that Naomi is looking for a job within that field, because she has highlighted it in all of her past work. And I do just really love the idea that she has included examples. I'm the proof is in the pudding kind of person. So if, someone's saying that they've edited this and that, and I can just click that and see it for myself, and then decide whether I think it's good or not, or if it would work with our company and what we're looking for, I think that's, all the better. So great job, Naomi. And yeah, that would be my biggest recommendation, is like, whatever job you're looking for, be sure to highlight responsibilities and tasks from any of the jobs that you've had in the past that could potentially help you with your job search.
And just to piggyback on that, this is where we're going to go back to our restaurant. And I want you guys to remember, I'm not looking for how many eggs you use to make the lasagna. I want you to explain to me how great the lasagna tasted. So when we list our experience, look at what you've written. Take a step back and think, did I just copy and paste the job description, or did I highlight what I've done? What did I bring to this job? Because a company isn't hiring somebody to be able to do this role, skills and duties. They want Naomi or Carolina or somebody who can come in and actually bring this job to life, maybe bring in suggestions, maybe bring in improvements, maybe create some efficiencies, maybe really leave a great lasting impression. So just remember, when it comes to listing out your experience, we have to step away from, I want to match my skills to the duties listed on a job description. What I now want to think about in this post-COVID workforce is, does this opportunity match the goals that I'm looking to do in my career? And not everybody is going to have a background that is as clear-cut as Naomi, right? Some of us may have only had 2 jobs. Some of us may have had a job in hospitality and customer service. But what you bring to that job, what you liked about doing that job, is how you want to position your experience. And again, we can go into this in more detail down the road or after this workshop if you want some additional support. But think about it this way. In my last role, what do I want to stop doing? What do I want to do more of? What can I maintain? I might be great at using PowerPoint, but I don't want to do PowerPoint anymore. I want to do something else in a different environment. So when you're going through your experience, I can be really good at a lot of things. Doesn't mean I want to keep doing those things. I may not have had a chance to do a lot of things. I want to start doing more of that. And when I think about what do I want to start doing more of, do I need some courses to do this? Do I need additional support? Do I need different learning in order to accomplish and gain these skills? So I like to look at experience. What do I need to stop doing, start doing, and what can I maintain? Okay. And again, we're here to support you as we move over. Now we're going to skills and endorsements. So we can go over to the next slide. Okay. Skills and endorsements is pretty easy. Here's how I want you to think about it. It's the memory game. What I put in is what is going to make me visible. It's how I'm going to be able to showcase all the things that I'm able to do. So when it comes to skills, if I put in, I am great at customer service, I'm a really good communicator. So we're looking at it for a combination of hard skills and soft skills. Soft skills are what we now call power skills: communication, critical thinking, feedback, right? Giving feedback is an incredible soft skill. Accepting feedback, even harder. So how do I communicate? How do I problem solve? What type of critical thinker am I? And then what you'll notice is when you start to create these skills, people who view your profile can say, you know what, Iona, you are a great communicator. I'm going to endorse you for that. Kate, you're fantastic at critical thinking. I'm going to endorse you for that. So then you start to see, as people land on your profile and they see the skills that you've listed, people are going to endorse them with you. They're going to agree with you. I've endorsed Melissa and Naomi for storytelling and digital and events because I know that they're capable, they produce good work, and I can see their effort in everything that they do. So when we talk about skills and endorsements, I want you to think about, are people endorsing you based on legitimate skills that you feel that you bring to the table? And how is that reflecting? Are more people endorsing you for certain skills and less than other skills? Maybe you need to put more. And then if you start to see that time management is getting an incredible amount of traction, what did I do? What is it about my time management? Am I just a really good taskmaster? Is it something that I want to explore more? Should I look into project management? Should I look into how do I create more efficiencies? So sometimes when you start to see the endorsements that you're getting, maybe it's going to open a door for pursuing a different avenue that you hadn't thought about before. Okay, so really think about the skills. Selma Amaral, if you're on here, we borrowed all of your skills because you did such a great job in not just listing your skills, but looking at all the endorsements that you received. And again, it's the credibility, guys. It's the Google reviews. I needed to buy something. It was a collar for my dog the other day. I was tossed between two, and I ended up going with the one that had like 1,400 likes and reviews. Who knows if they were all bots? But naturally, we like to kind of go with that flow. So there's credibility in the people who take the time to reinforce an observation that you have, or to reinforce performance in an area that you clearly have demonstrate some mastery over. Okay, so Selma, if you're on there, great. You had a lot of credibility and you did a fantastic job. Now we're going to flip over to number 6.
All right, so just on the topic of skills, we just want to remind you to be sure to have good balance between your technical skills and experiences and your soft skills. So in this example, we have, it's a little bit small, but there's a lot of skills there. And we have 10 industry knowledge skills, which are like hard skills, like event management, video editing, etc. And then we have 8 interpersonal or soft skills like leadership, creative problem solving. So you want to make sure that the list is more or less pretty even. If either list that you're largely outweighs the other one, it will either look like you have like little industry experience and you're trying to beef up your skills to make up for it, or you have lots of industry knowledge with just, a potential disregard for work ethic. So in this example, I've highlighted the hard and technical skills in blue and the interpersonal soft skills in pink. So we can see that there is a good balance here. And then number 7 is on to Vanessa.
Yes, so keywords. All right, so keywords. What are you looking for? So I want to weave keywords throughout. So if we look at, Mariana did a fantastic job in weaving in keywords throughout your profile. So it's going to start in your headline. You're going to see keywords in your summary. You're going to see keywords in your experience. You're going to align them to your skills. Just don't overdo it. So if I'm an accountant, my headline is going to be accountant because I love numbers. I love to count. My favorite cereal is Count Chocula. I'm just such a great counter. My summary, I was an accountant here because I count. We want to have fun with it, but we also want to recognize that if your keywords keep pointing back to who you are, what you want to do more of, what you've been recognized and endorsed as being great at, or maybe you haven't had a chance to get endorsed for it, but it's something that you have a personal interest in learning more about, the more keywords you have is going to increase your visibility of coming up in other people's searches. Let's not forget, LinkedIn is a networking tool for professionals. It has search capabilities. It is designed to have the algorithms to be able to pull that level of searching. So we know that searching is based on capturing those key keywords and those algorithms. So let's make sure we're building that in. So there's a difference between buzzwords and keywords. A buzzword would be proactive, multitasking, innovative, driven, hardworking, all of those things. Those are beautiful words, but they're fluffy. It doesn't tell me anything about you. So buzzwords, I call that space filler. Keywords, what can you actually do? So if you're an effective communicator through speech writing, presentation giving, storytelling, if you are customer service driven, you are results oriented, you worked in an outbound call center, walk me through the elements where I can turn around and say, Mariana is effective because these are the things that she's looking for. And I see it throughout her profile. And I'm going to come back to the second point at the beginning of our presentation, which was, number 1, make sure that you are not creating the kitchen sink on your profile, right? I don't want to look qualified for the job that I've done. I want to showcase my qualifications for the role that I want to do. So when we are talking about keywords, don't throw the kitchen sink into it. Okay, be selective, edit it, and going back to the profiles that we've showcased, I guarantee that Naomi and Christine and Jasmine and Mariana didn't just sit down in between The Bachelor and another show. Right now it's Stranger Things I'm obsessed with, and just put down this beautiful masterpiece. It takes time. You have to edit it. You want to reach into your kitchen cupboard and get your people to help read the label in front of you, right? You want to take your time to build this out. Okay. So don't overdo it, but make sure it tells the story of what it is that you're looking to do based on what you've done. Okay. Now let's flip over to responsibilities, because this is an interesting one.
So for number 8, you want to highlight relevant responsibilities that you had in your past job experiences. So on LinkedIn, it is much more acceptable to list more jobs than you would have had on a traditional resume. I think, like, I was always taught on a traditional resume that you hand to someone on paper, you want to make it 1 page. So obviously then you're going to have to cut down your experience and just use the relevant experience because you want it to be short. So LinkedIn, you definitely can have more positions, but that being said, update the descriptions to highlight tasks and responsibilities that complement the kind of job that you are looking for. So this is kind of similar to what I'd mentioned before, I believe in number 4. But like, for example, if you're a content writer and you don't have a lot of experience in that profession, make sure to highlight times where you've had to write in your past jobs. So for example, when I was starting out, my very first job I ever had was I worked at Longo's and I was their demo girl. And every Saturday and Sunday, I would have to sell and promote a certain kind of fruit or vegetable at the front of the store. And then when I went to, go for one of my first more professional jobs that were in public relations and creative content, I highlighted the items as a demo girl that would apply to that because I didn't have that professional experience yet. So I said, I wrote up reviews of the fruits and vegetables. I kind of gave them a story. I did storytelling for an heirloom tomato, and I said what made it great and how you can add it. And I was able to highlight the aspects of that job that I would apply to to my first professional job in the field. So just make sure that if, say, you don't have tons of, in your face relevant experience to the jobs that you're going for, you can find, if you want to, those highlights that have existed in your past jobs that can complement the one that you want to go for.
That's great. And remember this, everybody. Make sure when you are creating your LinkedIn profile, you're doing it in first person. Because this is the story of you. And companies don't hire resumes, they don't hire profiles, they hire people. And so it's really important that you are showing up as a person. I did this. I believe in this. I am driven and passionate about this. Because what you bring to an organization is you are bringing all of your passion. I am somebody who believes that diversity and inclusion are impactful in this way. This is where I'd like to get more involved. This is where I'm hoping that the culture of your organization aligns with the goals that I have in my career. We spend 8-9 hours a day in a job, in a role, in an opportunity. If we're there to make a difference, if we're there because making a difference is important to us, make sure that comes across in your profile. Make sure that your responsibilities also showcase in first person who you are as a person without buzzwords, without being, I'm just somebody who can't say no. I can't say no. I can never say no. I just take on everything. That doesn't show me that you're going to fix all my problems. That shows me you can't manage your time. So think about who you are coming across of in your profile. If you're somebody that prefers independent work, be clear about it. If you're somebody that prefers working in a team and collaborating and being innovative and failing forward, and mistakes are how you learn, and you just want to let's just keep messing around until we get the right finished product, be clear about that. Because there's nothing worse about presenting yourself in a way that is an imposter to who you are, because eventually cracks start to come out. So I'm going to leave you with this when we kind of move into our next section. We have never, ever seen a state in our workforce where if you want to get a job, you can get a job. I guarantee in the next half hour, you can have 4 offers. If you want to create a space in an organization where you can make a difference, that exists. If you want to completely flip the script and you want to retrain into an environment that you've always had an interest in, right now we know learning is easy, education is expensive, but there are so many resources right now to get learning. We offer 2 platforms to do completely asynchronous learning that you all will have access to. The point I'm trying to make here, how you want to show up at work, how you want to perform, the difference that you want to make, all of those options right now exist. So you can either come at this with, I need a job just to stay just over broke. I'm ready to change careers. I'm ready to look at something completely different. I want someone to take a chance on me. You can do all of those things. And this is the time to do it because it is a candidate market and there is so much opportunity and there has never been such a great time to be somebody who is looking to move their career, whether you're Gen Z, whether you're a boomer. It is a fascinating landscape right now for employment. So I hope nobody feels that they are being handcuffed or held back because it's there and we can help you find it. So I'm going to get off my soapbox right now because I get started and I just get hungry. Now we're going to move into what else is it used for. So I've got these 3 interesting images here. Everybody heard of Sephora? Everybody heard of the Harvard Business Review? And does anybody know who this guy is? So if anybody knows who this guy is, give me a thumbs up. All right, Simon Sinek. Who said that? Susan, you're my hero. Okay, Simon Sinek, your homework after this workshop is I want you to Google him. I want you to watch his TED Talks. What I love about Simon Sinek is what you are going to love about him, which is always start with why. And he talks about whether it's working for a job, whether it's leading a company, whether it's how you work in any of your relationships, is if you start with the purpose, you are able to really carve out how things are going to work out for you. And start with why is really important. You'll notice at the beginning of this presentation, I had 3 circles. I had why, how, and what. And this is the principle that he references and start with why. Why are we doing what we do? How are we going to do it? And what are we doing? I'm going to use Apple as an example. Apple sells computers, right? They make music. But if you were to ask anybody who works at Apple, why did they do it? Because they think differently. That's their tagline. They think differently. What do? They want to make technology accessible and easy for everybody. How do they do it? By making technology that's easy to use and speaks to each other. What do? They're a computer company. We look at Harvard Business Review, same thing. Thought leadership, lots of interesting information. Sephora, yes, they're a makeup company, but what are they doing? What are they pioneering? How are they showing up? The reason why I put these 3 very different examples is I want you to look at LinkedIn, not just as a platform where your profile sits there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want you to start looking at following organizations, people, thought leaders that interest you. I want you to start thinking about, I've always wanted to work at Sephora, but I don't know what they do. What do they talk about? What kind of things are they posting about? Maybe I come for SOAP and say, you know what, this isn't what I want to work in. So it doesn't interest me. Or it's going to lead you to something else. I want you to also think about, this is used for a reference tool. If I go back to Naomi and I look at, she has a very clear background in events and storytelling. If she starts looking at people very similar to her and starts looking how other people are creating their profiles, maybe there's elements that she can incorporate into her own brand. Maybe she can learn about companies that interest her. Maybe she can explore completely different environments that she had no idea existed. So I want us to think about LinkedIn as an exploration into reinforcing what we want to do. I want you to think about it as growth. So following Simon Sinek, Adam Grant is another phenomenal individual who has great TED Talks, who really talks about leadership. Brene Brown, my queen, She talks about leadership, vulnerability, how to show up as a leader, armored leadership versus not. The point is, LinkedIn is not a one-stop shop. It is a collaboration of thought. It reinforces what you're doing. It's a phenomenal real-time experiment to see if somebody has a background that I either want to see, want to explore. What do their skills look like? What does their education look like? I mean, what better way to mirror or reinforce or learn about what someone else is doing than to actually pull up that profile of something that you're interested in and look at what steps did they take? What does their journey look like? Is my journey similar to that? Is it completely different? So I want us to really think about what it's used for. It's used for branding, sure. It's used for being visible, absolutely. But it's also an incredible reference tool. And we're seeing more and more of that by some of the content that you're probably seeing as you go into your newsfeed. So we created something after this slide. If we want to move over to the next slide, I think you guys are way too sophisticated for this, so we're going to go about it pretty quickly. But we created a couple of different examples of profiles that look incomplete, and what do we think is missing? So if we can go to the first example, speed round, just looking at this image, what's missing? Yes, Megan, photo. Why is photo important? Why do we think a picture is important? Do we think a picture is important? It does. It connects you. It forms a relationship. Human beings, unfortunately, we are feeling people and emotional people that sometimes think, right? So we make decisions with our eyes. We like to build relationships. We like to build connection. And as much as we try and pretend that everything is analytics and data, at the end of the day, we're emotional people that sometimes think, right? And make the right decision. So pictures are important. It forms a connection. You start to build a relationship. Can it have different repercussions? Yes. But at the end of the day, is the established expectation on LinkedIn to have a photo? Yes. So, Sandria, yes, I would suggest doing it, but keep this in mind. A photo just allows someone to start to build a connection with you. Professional photos, yes, they're important. You can throw on a blazer and make sure the light is behind you and set up your iPhone. I've done that several times. You don't have to spend money on this. And as far as the background space, I wouldn't worry about that. You can do different templates if you want. It's not a concern of mine. Some people will put a banner. Somebody will put a quote. I'm not concerned about the background picture. Okay, let's move over to the second one. Let's see who can pick out what's missing in the second example. You guys are too smart though. What do we see? Okay, so let me cheat this one for you. They've listed a lot of industry knowledge skills, but not enough soft skills. So what happens when we don't include soft skills? How am I going to work with you? What kind of person are you? So when you are putting in industry and knowledge, make sure that you are including a healthy balance of hard skills and back skills and soft skills. I'm sorry. I can teach hard skills, right? I can teach anybody how to use Excel. Can I teach you to be deadline driven? Can I teach you integrity? Can I teach you the essential skills that if you are not a problem solver or a critical thinker, or you're the type of person that would rather be right than get it right, it's the Brene Brown quote, then how are you going to collaborate within a team where everybody else would rather get it right than be right? So we are seeing a tremendous amount of time and assessments and behavioral conversations that start to talk about people's self-awareness, people's approach in how they show up in meetings. COVID taught us when you are screen to screen with individuals, are you always the first one to talk? Are you the type, if you're in a leadership role, do you wait till everybody has a chance to speak and then you speak? How do you show up as a leader? How do you show up as a colleague? How do you show up in a team? So make sure when you are putting in your skills, you are capturing your soft skills. And I don't like the word soft skills. I prefer essential skills or power skills. And you're also talking about your hard skills, because what we know now is many of the hard skills that are considered core competencies can be taught, right? Companies are really shifting into hiring for fit, train for skill, especially in areas where there is so much talent scarcity in right now. So think about that and think about who you are, and especially as women, and especially for those of you who are parents, not only are you used to multitasking, you're probably doing a third shift, right? You've got your first shift at work, then you've got your second shift, and then your third shift is child rearing and everything else that happens after work. So you want to think about all of those elements that you bring to the table. And those are skills that if you do not have a lot of work experience, having worked that third shift, knowing what you're doing, right? We don't just leave at 5 o'clock and come home. We leave at 5 o'clock and we start probably 2 other jobs in the house. So what does that show us? Time management, resourceful. You're probably fantastic at managing time and expectations and unforeseen events. You can prioritize very quickly. You're a really good decision maker. During COVID, right? We did not have a lot of information, so we had to make decisions quickly based on our gut. Those skills, for all of you on this call, don't ever discount them. That is critical, and it makes you an impactful employee and a colleague and a trusted resource in a company, because that same integrity that you bring into your family, you're going to bring into your job. You're not going to let your team down because you have operated at such a high level of integrity. That integrity translates into your work. So just remember, for all my power moms on this call, your skill set, especially in the last 2 years, has made you a force to be reckoned with. So make sure that you're capitalizing that. Make sure you're taking those skills and reinforcing that you have learned skills that you probably can have words for on LinkedIn. Okay, so make sure you're showcasing that. If we go to the last example, and let's see if it's a bit easier to read. Let's see if we can pull that up. It's still a bit small, but we want to make sure that you've got a balance between your technical, your experience, and your soft skills. So this example has 18 soft skills and only 2 hard skills. So even if you have very little industry experience and you want to talk about, how great you are as an individual, that's great. And that's fine. But make sure you are also walking me through what steps you are taking to become knowledgeable or competitive, or to learn the competency that's required to operate in the field you want to get into. Okay, you can have a ton of interpersonal skills, and that's important, but what are you doing to become competitive in this example? So when you look at the endorsements that this person has in this third example, they've got 19 people that believe that they're skilled at writing and 15 people that believe they're skilled at editing. And that's great. And that's fantastic. But what are we doing to actually lean that towards what I want to do? Okay. And the last example is I showcased Natazi. And I love this example. She has a wonderful headshot. Her headline includes a mix of hard skills like software engineer, content creator, code, and soft skills like an advocate, a scholar, and superpower. Right? So keep in mind, we also want to have a bit of fun in this, right? You want your personality to come through. We're always learning. You want to be a lifelong learner, and you want to remember always, 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 what you put out there is not there for eternity. You can go back in every 5 minutes and change one word if it doesn't feel right. And I encourage you to go back in and update it. We evolve all the time. So if you took a new skill, if you learned something on a podcast, if you discovered something that you want to pursue, make sure you're including it. It's a living, breathing example of who you are as a person. And people, we're not stagnant, right? We're not static. We're always moving. We're always growing. We're always making mistakes. We're always learning from those mistakes. Look at your LinkedIn profile in that same lens. It's not a static piece of paper that just gets lost in a pile. It is a living, breathing example of everything that you're doing. So we've gone a bit over, but I thought we had some great pieces on here. Couple things I want to leave you with. I believe Iona and Kim will share my contact information. Please reach out to me over LinkedIn. We have a number of resources, which I think you have already at your disposal for learning and programs and courses. I am here to support you. I am here to help you. Please reach out to me. We have a fantastic partnership with Dress for Success. And like I said in the beginning of this call, I am a firm, but my why is I believe in the power of work. I believe in the power of work to be an element and a gateway to freedom. It is an opportunity for you to be independent. It empowers you with skills to make a difference, both for yourself and your family. And we are here to support you in anywhere you can with several different resources and programs. And sometimes let me be the person that reads the label from outside the bottle. So with that, I just want to thank you all for your time. I apologize for the technical glitches in the beginning. I love this conversation. I love what I do, and I am here for whatever support that you need.
Hi, Vanessa. I'm not sure if you missed any of that, but I'm really just showering you with praise. We were in the office here listening, riveted to everything that you've said, talking about some of the things and the tips that we're learning about our own LinkedIn profile. So it's really great. And I hope that I'm sure that everybody present today is going away from this hour and a half to make those immediate edits to the great information that you shared. Thank you so much. We do have some great questions. If we have a couple of minutes, you also have access to it in the little question mark bubble on the right of your screen, Vanessa, there. I'm happy to help facilitate this, or if there's a couple, because I know that you've kind of talked about a lot of these things that we've gone through.
Let's see here.
We have a couple.
Want me to start from the top, Iona?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So what happens when the work experience I've gained in the past is not what I want to transition to? Fantastic. So Carolina, what I would say is you can either look qualified for the job that you've done, or you can take the pieces from your experience that you want to continue doing. So what I always will tell people is take a piece of paper and divide it in two. Put down all of the skills that you've gained in your past roles. And then in the next column, what are the skills that you want to continue using? And whatever doesn't move over, you've been there, done that, and you're good with it. Now take the skills that you want to use, and then you incorporate that into your summary. But what we want to get away from, and somebody had commented this before, there used to be an understanding that your resume should never be more than 2 pages, for example. It should never be more than 2 pages. You don't want to go back 10 years. I disagree with that. I think your resume needs to capture the back of the book. This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I want to do more of. This is why I want to do it. And this is how I can do it for you. So you go back to those 3 circles. This is why I want to do it. This is how I feel I am able to do this. This is what I want to do. And if it doesn't show up as a job title yet, Carolina, if you're still exploring, if you're new to the workforce, so I saw some LinkedIn profiles that have a little bit of customer service in them. You're still exploring. Customer service was the first job that you might have gotten in. That's fine. But what do you want to do? What do you enjoy about customer service? Do you like being on the problem solving side? Do you like just being on the phone with people? Do you want to learn more about de-escalating conversations? Do you want to learn more about maybe conflict management? Are you really interested in the product that you were selling or the service that you were promoting? Do you want to get more involved in the business? So go into it like a detective. If I have to solve the case of Carolina Lopez, what does she want to do? What do I know? I know that this is what she's done. I know that if I sat her in a chair today, this is the job she could do. And if that job was eliminated tomorrow and there were 2 jobs in 2 different doors, what door do I think she'd want to go into? So sometimes when we're creating our path, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have your next 5 years mapped out. And I will tell you, the one interview question that sets me off is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know where I'm going to be next week. So I just don't, right? What am I doing right now? And I'm enjoying it, and I'm engaged by it, and I'm making a difference doing it. And the most important statement to always make is, I'm still curious about it. When you stop being curious about what you're doing, when you stop feeling like you're making an impact, when you dread what you're doing, it's time to go. I don't care if you spent 4 years at school doing it. When it does not bring you joy, when it does not keep you curious, when you don't appreciate the work that you're doing and the impact it's having, time to do something else. And I know people who have left extremely successful careers and they make soap on a farm somewhere. Happiest they've ever been in their life, right? So, Carolina, did I answer your question? The exercise is really about, what are you going to start doing, stop doing, and what do you want to maintain? Do I have any thoughts on LinkedIn creator mode for those of us who are either self-employed or looking at becoming self-employed? Sarah, are you still on? Can you expand on that? I don't know if so. I will say this, when it comes to self-employed, and does it make a difference? I think that a couple years ago, about 10 years ago, the role of virtual assistant became very popular. Sarah, creator mode, you're right. It's a whole other beast. And I think that if you are self-employed and you want to showcase your skills, my feeling is sometimes it makes you harder to find. I think that you can create a standard profile and really build in that as a freelancer, as a consultant, as somebody who's just really operating because you're chasing the impact that you're making. I don't think you need to overcomplicate it by going into creator mode. Now, I don't work for LinkedIn, so I want to be careful that I don't want to discredit the creator mode. I just think that whether you're self-employed or you're employed or you're a freelancer or you're working as a virtual anything, it doesn't change the core competencies and the value that you bring to a company. So I don't know if that helps or not, Sarah, but I don't think you need an additional tool that's going to highlight specific areas if you're capturing your keywords and you're outlining your summary and you're kind of following that formula. I think that it will sometimes pull information if you're posting something or if you have that content and if you're blogging, let's say, on LinkedIn. But I think that's also a separate element. And I think it kind of changes how you're using LinkedIn. So we can take this offline, Sarah, if you want to dig into it more. But I don't work for LinkedIn, so I just want to be cautious that I'm not.
No, absolutely, yeah. Vanessa. I really appreciate your insights on that. And there are a few questions connected specifically to LinkedIn. So yes, I just encourage everybody on the call to sort of maybe dig in a little bit to LinkedIn's website. Maybe see there if you can reach out to somebody directly. I know that you've made yourself available, which is great. But I'm going to shift gears to another question here that's a little bit different, sort of broadens it out a bit. How to showcase skills when you have 4 very different careers with unique skills in each role. Some recommendations there.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So if you had to tell a story, so if you had to stand up and give your 30-second pitch on applying for a job tomorrow, what would that story sound like? So people who have 4 or 5 different completely unrelated roles, there's always something that's a common thread. You're either front facing or you're in a kind of back office analytical role. Are you more of a problem solver or are you a problem finder? Are you often somebody that takes a very logical, analytical approach at things? Or do you believe and you would rather build a relationship than try and operationalize how it's going to look? So think about, in the 4 different roles that you've had, what role did you play? Were you the first point of contact? Were you the person they came to bounce off the problems? If you look at the workflow in your last 4 opportunities, where were you in that story, right? Were you the problem identifier, the solver, the fixer? Were you client facing or customer facing? Were you in the background, but without you, nothing worked? So look for some common themes and then take those themes in my career spanning from customer service to accounting assistant. I always played a role of first point of contact for customers. I built strong relationships. I am driven to results. I really appreciate having KPIs. So you can summarize it, but there's always going to be a common element in those last 4 positions of the role that you played. And if there isn't, pick one. So if you had a completely different job in each one, but what I really liked is when a customer came to me for help, or a colleague came to me for help, or I was always the one that did accounts receivables, which means I had to call people. But over here, I was selling tomatoes, but I had to engage people. So what does that tell me? That I'm client facing. I like to build relationships, and I want to use that skill in this capacity, right? You want to leverage that with maybe learning more about accounting or getting more into the retail business. So try and find a theme in those 4 opportunities, but showcase. I've had the opportunity to explore and experience several different industries. What I learned was this: across these 4 very diverse areas, providing top tier customer service, being a problem solver, having integrity in your team are core values that followed me from each opportunity, right? So I'm bringing the hard skill, but I'm really propping it up with the soft skill, because what you've demonstrated, whoever asked that question, you can be taught how to do a job, but what are you bringing to each role?
Absolutely. I hope that gives you some insight, Fiona. And I think it's great. Vanessa, you sparked another sort of piece that you just touched on. When you have so many skills and so much experience and you're honing in on those themes, to also remember to identify the ones that you really resonate and that you want to carry forward, right? Because people could be telling you that you're really good at a certain thing. You could know that you're really good at a certain theme or idea. But if that's not what you want to carry forward into your next role, then, you don't want to be highlighting that and continuing that. So that's great. I'm going to take sorry, go ahead.
No, I just saw one here. How many recommendations do you suggest we have? I will ask you, if you have individuals that can really support and complement key examples of that you want to showcase of your work, you can have 30. I mean, I sometimes I go on profiles and they've got, upwards of 10. 1 is great. 2 is amazing. I think that it's more about the quality of what people are showcasing, which, again, you're in control of. Nobody can just make a recommendation without you approving it, number 1. LinkedIn will not post anything unless you approve it. And number 2, I think you want to be very careful in selecting what you want to showcase. If I no longer want to work in a call center and the recommendation is someone that talks about, my gosh, Iona could take, 50 calls an hour and never get up. She's amazing. Well, I don't want that, because I don't want something, oh my gosh, I want you to answer 50 calls an hour for me. So just think about, like everything else that we do, is this moving me closer to my goal, or is this going to keep me closer to what I know I can do, but I don't want to do more of.
Exactly.
So that would be how I would answer that question. If the recommendations move you closer to where you want to go, I would profile that. Kim, let's talk about ageism.
Just before we go over to ageism, I just want to follow up on that just with another question here about the recommendations. Is there an expectation to write one if you request one?
That's a fantastic question. I'm going to answer it two ways.
Okay.
The first way I'm going to answer it is, I always tell people, don't ask questions if you don't want to know the answer, right? Like, if I'm going to ask somebody for a recommendation, I'm going to assume that they're not going to be like, well, that's a surprise. I'm kind of shocked that you would come to me for a recommendation, number one. So I think you need to really know your audience, and I think it shouldn't come out of left field. If you do get, and I have had several come to me for something, I'm like, wow, this really shows a lack of self-awareness considering kind of how things went down. There's nothing wrong with saying, please let me know what you are hoping to see out of my recommendation, and I will share with you my interpretation of how I see this recommendation. And if you feel that all you're doing is kind of pumping their tires, but it doesn't really reflect how you see that situation, I would say no, that you're not comfortable doing it. Because here's the thing. People do read recommendations. People place a lot of value in a recommendation. And you don't ever want to be in a situation where people don't take your opinion as a credible source. So if you worked with somebody that was not collaborative, difficult, was only focused on being right, not getting it right, all of those things that we talked about, and they say, can you just put a recommendation that I was so awesome and the best and super collaborative? And you're like, okay, sure. Now it's my credibility at stake in terms of how I offer this insight. So let that kind of be your guiding principle. Everything on LinkedIn, I mean, recommendations can be deleted, certainly, but there's nothing wrong with saying no. There's nothing wrong with asking for clarification. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being clear about, I don't think I'm the best person to really capture the type of performance that you're looking to showcase. Is there somebody else that might be a better resource?
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Sorry, Kim, I don't know if you can push that question again around ageism. There we go.
Tailoring your profile. Okay, let's talk about ageism. Tailoring your profile based on your age, but not necessarily drawing attention to being younger or older. So as soon as you said ageism, my mind immediately went to older. And that should tell you about the bias that is inherent right now in the workplace. What I will tell you is this. When we look at surveys and polls done by HR companies, we see that there is a bias toward hiring people without experience, fresh out of school, because what tends to be lacking, which is very difficult to teach, are 4 critical soft skills, which is collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, and accepting and giving feedback. So when you have people that are entering the workforce, those 4 key soft skills are usually missing, lacking, or weak. What happens is that now you take those 4 skills, you go to a remote working environment, and it's difficult to build relationships over Teams. They've never met anybody in person. They have a hard time problem solving, time management, right? It's hard to build those relationships. So when you look at ageism in terms of where is the value, there's tremendous value in having a workforce where you've got individuals who are in the middle or, the twilight of their career, let's call it, but have incredible experience. Maybe they're a really great sounding board. Maybe they have incredible mentorship opportunities, but what they're missing is the tech savviness that this new workforce brings to the table. So if you look at it as a pie chart, it is a beautiful environment where you've got a population. Your company should reflect the community that you're in, to be simple, right? You should have people who have been in the workforce for a long time. You should have people who look like you. You should have people who don't look like you. You should have people who are brand new in their career. You should have people that really need support. It's a very Disney way that I'm saying it. It doesn't always show up that way, but that's ideally what you want a great organization to look like. It should reflect the community that you live in. In saying that, how do I position it? I don't think right now in today's workforce, it is a barrier to say that you've been in the workforce for 40 or 50 years. I think it is a badge of honor to be able to walk through what you bring to the table. And what's critical is that the Gen Z needs to talk about what they're doing to learn critical thinking, problem solving. They don't teach that well enough in post-secondary. And what the older workforce needs to be open to is removing, well, that's the way we've always done it. We've always done it that way, right? 7 most deadliest words in business. So you need to have an openness and a collaborative approach to the curiosity of, I'm willing to learn how to be a critical thinker, but you need to be willing to abandon how you've always done it and look at the efficiency of moving everything remote or to an app, or how can we build tech into our solution, and how can we incorporate digital? Because that's where this new generation, it's second nature, right? But the generation who's been in the workforce longer tends to be a little bit slower to make quick decisions, right? There's a little bit more thought. There's a lot to learn from a soft skills perspective, and there's a lot to learn from a hard skills perspective, from both of them blending. Do I think ageism right now is a barrier? No. I think it's a barrier if you're not willing to change. I think if you are not willing to respect the fact that every company, no matter what you do, is a tech company right now, and you have to adapt and you have to adopt these technologies, and you have to be willing and open to learn them and perform them, and not just say, I don't know how this thing works, it's too confusing. Then you're right. You will see ageism rear its ugly head. The same way if you have a young workforce that doesn't see anything wrong with longevity, right? They have to understand the mission and the culture in an organization to stay. My generation above, if you left a job within 2 years, you were considered a flight risk. And now that doesn't exist. You work as long as there's value given to you, provided by the organization. You agree with what they're doing. It aligns with, your own core values. It's completely shifted. So I don't know if I tried to land the plane there, whoever asked that question.
It's a big topic. It's a tough one. And, you did a great job of providing sort of greater context and really posing some important questions in terms of our own self-reflection, as well as thinking about who you want to be when you are in a new role and how you want to contribute to that culture. So I think
people are retiring later and later. And I will tell you, some of the people that we see enrolling in our programs to do self-directed learning in tech is people over 50, right?
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I mean, this is a conversation that we could have for the rest of the day, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm just mindful of the time, and I know that there's lots of great questions. You have generously offered to have people, connect with you directly. Of course, Dress for Success is always here to field any questions. And once again, Vanessa, and also please extend our thanks to Melissa for joining us. This is a fantastic session.
Absolutely.
So it was a great way to kick off day 2 of our conference, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you want to send me those questions and I can put something together for the ones that we can
fantastic.
get to, I'm happy to work with you, Iona, on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Before we do log off, though, just a couple of quick things that we want to remind you about, again, for upcoming sessions for the remainder of the week. We're going to pop up a link that you can click on right now to go over and register if you haven't already. Or again, if you want to take a little break and absorb the great information that Vanessa shared today, you can always head back to our website, check out what we've got coming up in the next 3 days. And also, if you could take a few minutes before you log off to take this poll, that we'd love to get some feedback from you about this session.